Morbid Facts, Part 11. In 1984, magician and comedian Tommy Cooper died of a heart attack while performing live on stage. Thinking it was all part of the show, the audience continued to laugh and clap as the man spent his final moments gasping for air. 26-year-old Bella Kilmartin has a rare condition that sends her body to sleep when she experiences strong emotions. She once almost drowned in a pool after laughing at a joke caused her to pass out. The Bunker brothers were a pair of conjoined twins who made the term Siamese twins popular. They were a famous sideshow act in North Carolina until one day one of the brothers woke up to find that his twin had died. In a panic, he called a surgeon to perform an emergency separation, but it was already too late. He would die just 2 hours later as a result of shock. Anton syndrome is a rare psychological condition that can affect people who suddenly go blind. They are completely unaware of their blindness and outright deny it, since their brain generates false images, causing them to believe that they can still see. In 2013, a Brazilian woman confessed to lacing her cooter with poison so that her husband would die when he went down on her. In November of 2004, Peter Porco was struck 16 times in the head with an axe while he was asleep in his New York home. But he miraculously woke up the next morning, made breakfast and coffee for himself, and finally fell dead after picking up his newspaper. His body was in so much shock that he was completely unaware of his battered state and the pools of blood all around him. Morbid Facts, Part 10. When 13-year-old Ryan White got AIDS from a blood donor in 1984, he was only given 6 months to live. Even though doctors said he posed absolutely zero risk to other students, Ryan was banned from returning to school by a petition signed by 117 parents. An auction was even held to raise funds to keep him out, and a local newspaper that supported him received death threats. The family had no other choice but to leave town when a bullet was shot through the window of their home. Ryan outlived the doctor's diagnosis by 5 years, dying at the age of 19. In 2009, Moscow native Julia Popova was stabbed in the neck by a mugger. But she was in so much shock that she walked home without even realizing that the knife was embedded in her, just millimeters from her spinal cord. She spent over an hour with the blade in her back before finally going to the hospital. The knife was successfully removed via surgery, and Julia made a full recovery. Dutchman Dirk Willems was a religious prisoner who escaped his execution in 1569. When the guard chasing him fell through the ice in a nearby river, Willems turned around to save him. He was then recaptured and burned at the stake. Your lungs have a total surface area of 750 square feet, meaning if they were opened up and laid flat, they would cover the entire size of a tennis court. In 1977, the drummer for Lynyrd Skynyrd, Artemis Pyle, survived the plane crash that killed half the band. He then walked to a nearby house for help, only to be shot by the homeowner. He was apparently startled by the sight of a long-haired, bloody man, and fired a warning shot that hit the drummer in the shoulder. Once Pyle shouted that there was a crash, the farmer helped him and he went on to recover. Morbid Facts, Part 9. In 2006, a team of scientists in Iceland were freezing clams in order to study the effects of climate change. They ended up killing the oldest known animal in the world, a 507-year-old ocean quahog clam named Ming. There are over 70 documented cases of transplant patients experiencing the same thoughts and feelings as their donors did in life. People have reported everything from craving their donors' favorite foods to inheriting their talents. It has posed a theory that the cells in our bodies can store memories. This is what toilets looked like in many medieval castles. There are a few cases of assassins climbing up these poop chutes and waiting for their targets to sit down before killing them. The Burnden Park disaster was a human crush that occurred in 1946 at Burnden Park Football Stadium in England. Overcrowding led to the horrific deaths of 33 people and injuries to hundreds more. The bodies were then left on the sidelines covered with coats, and the game was later resumed and finished with the corpses still on the field. 18 months after colon surgery, an Australian woman returned to the hospital when she was experiencing severe stomach pain. Apparently, the surgeons had accidentally left their scissors inside of her abdomen. An elderly woman from Brooklyn is a hoarder who also happens to be legally blind. At some point in the 1990s, her son who lived in the house suddenly disappeared. In 2016, his fully clothed skeleton was found in a room filled with garbage. She'd unknowingly been living with his corpse for more than 20 years. Morbid Facts, Part 395. In 2013, 19-year-old Maureen Kelly was camping in the forests of Washington State with some friends when she suddenly told them that she wanted to go on a spiritual quest. She then stripped naked, crossed a nearby creek, and was never seen again. Police quickly discovered her bare footprints on the other side of the creek, but they ended at a paved road and the trail went cold. Often translated as death by 1,000 cuts, Ling Chi was a brutal form of execution used in China for nearly 1,000 years until it was outlawed in 1905. Journalist Sir Henry Norman described it as, "The criminal is fastened to a rough cross, and the executioner, armed with a sharp knife, begins by grasping handfuls from the fleshy parts of the body, such as the thighs and breasts, and slicing them off. Then the limbs are cut off piecemeal at the wrists and the ankles, the elbows and the knees, the shoulders and hips. Finally, the victim is stabbed to the heart and his head is cut off." Many reports detailed victims screaming for hours until they died. Morbid Facts, Part 206. Just last year, Wendy Williams was diagnosed with aphasia and frontotemporal dementia as her devastating condition has been going viral online. While her son says it's the result of long-term alcohol abuse, others point to the time Wendy did something very peculiar on her show in 2014. Wendy said she would eat crow if Kanye and Kim's marriage lasted longer than 72 days, which it did. While that's normally just a saying, Wendy actually had a chef prepare some crow for her to eat.
My mouth is watering over this.
In many religions such as Hinduism, crows are said to be the messengers of our ancestors, in that they can cross the divide between the physical and spiritual worlds. For this reason, eating a crow is believed to be a bad omen that results in the consumer being cursed. Many say eating the crow was the turning point of Wendy's career and the start of her ailing health problems. These are some morbid facts about Steve Jobs. When Steve was 23, he had a daughter named Lisa, but denied that he was the father for several years. A paternity test even confirmed that he was the father, but he continued to deny this until his baby mama took him to court. Steve was notorious for parking in handicapped spaces when he couldn't find a close enough spot. Jobs believed that his commitment to vegan diets meant that his body was flushed of mucus and therefore free of body odors. So he rarely wore deodorant or even showered, thinking that he didn't need to. And his former workers were quoted saying that he was very, very wrong about this idea. While preparing for his role in the movie Jobs, Ashton Kutcher tried Steve's fruitarian diet but had to stop after having problems with his pancreas. It's likely no coincidence that Steve Jobs himself ended up dying of pancreatic cancer. Steve reportedly could have avoided dying from the cancer by having it properly treated, but he refused to go for 9 months, believing that a naturopathic diet would be the better route. According to reports, it was one of Steve's biggest life regrets. Morbid NFL Facts, Part 3. When he was a sophomore in college, NBA legend Karl Malone had a child with a 13-year-old girl. The son grew up to become NFL player Demetrius Bell, but he said he only met his dad on one occasion after graduating high school, where Malone told him it was too late for a father-son relationship and that he would have to make his way on his own. In 1993, NFL player Jeff Alm crashed his car while under the influence, killing his best friend but leaving Jeff completely unharmed. Alm then retrieved a shotgun from the wreck, fired 2 desperation shots in the air, and then sat down and took his own life. After 9/11, NFL safety Pat Tillman turned down a multi-million-dollar offer from the Cardinals to instead join the U.S. Army. He served several combat tours in the Army Rangers before he was tragically killed by friendly fire in the mountains of Afghanistan. Prior to his death, Tillman called the American invasion and occupation of Iraq effing illegal.